Four total.
No, Eric can sit up here. You ready, Doug? Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and reconvene our regular meeting for the City Council on Monday, November 20th. We were in closed session. I'll go to my city attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council has reconvened from closed session where items 3A and 3C were discussed with no reportable action taken.
Thank you. If you could stand with me, please. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Mayor Pro Tem Edgar. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay standing. Bow your head. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity tonight to get together as a city and to go through these important issues. Lord, we pray that tonight you give us the wisdom and the foresight to be able to think through some of these really tough things that we need to do. Lord, we pray for our council member, the former council member Josh Wilson and his family as they go off on their adventure. And Lord, I pray that that the council is able to get through this process and to take the city to the next level. Lord, thank you for everything. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
If you could join me down front, good one, small business manager one, and then we'll do the other presentations. Is that it? Yeah. Okay, so Saturday is Small Business Saturday. It's recognized throughout the country, and we are chock full of small businesses here in our city. We love our small businesses. They are the bread and butter. We love the families getting started, and we have a large array of businesses in our city. So today we're going to recognize some, the ones over in Arbor Village, and we're going to go ahead and bring those up. From Denim Bar, Judy Montooth, I'm sorry. Yep, come on up. Thank you. Thank you. There we go. And we have Dina Birch from Cinnamon Sticks. We have Debbie Jacobs from Place of Our Own. And we have Rick and Jill Wilson from Shenandoah. I know, I could have gone into go order. And we have Allie Wilson and Rachel McGill from Dixie James. Oh, there you go. So these are our small business owners from Arbor Village. You can go there, you can have a great meal, you can do some clothes shopping, get your hair done, and do a little bit of Christmas shopping. So we encourage everybody, not just next Saturday, but on all days, to use our small businesses. They're fully invested in our community. They give back to our community in more ways than you will ever know. So we just really want to make sure that we highlight them and make sure they're recognized. And we just thank you so much for what you do for our community, and you make this a great place to live, work, and go to school. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and next we have Gail Taylor from the Cypress College Foundation to talk about the Americana Awards.
Good evening, Mayor and councilmen and staff. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to come speak to you about Americana, which is Cypress College's major fundraiser, and it's an evening where we honor one of your own. And this year, our honoree from your city, nominated by you, Mayor Hasselbrink, is Blair Petrini, right here. And while I'm introducing Blair, I'd like you to know that our college president is here. Our new president, Dr. Joanna Schilling, is with me. And Johnny Strohmeyer, who is chairman of the Americana Committee from Los Alamitos. And actually, one of our board members is here tonight. He's speaking on something else, but he's one of us, Ken Veccarelli. So we've got a nice contingent here from Cypress College. February 10th is this year's 43rd Americana Awards. And we're very pleased to be honoring Blair as well as 7 other honorees. And we currently have 222 students from your lovely city. And proceeds from our event helps support those students who apply for scholarships or need book loans or emergency grants. So we always appreciate your support as well as the others from your community. I know Councilman Edgar and Councilman Murphy also serve on our committee, so thank you for that. So we have great support from your city, and we appreciate that as well. So of course, we're here to ask you if you would consider being a sponsor, one of our benefactor, or another table sponsor. I know it's rather expensive, but it does support the students from your city. And also, I'd like to mention that if you would like to offer us a ride with a fire truck or a policeman, or lunch with you, Mayor, or with a policeman, those always go well in our silent auction. Wine, other items, we would love to accept. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about Blair. I'm sure you all know her, but she was working at Cottonwood, where her brother is senior pastor. Is that correct? Yes. And she was answering the phones for someone one day, and a woman called, and a single mom, and she had hungry children and no food for them. And another phone call she got another time was from someone whose children couldn't go to school because they didn't have clothing. And she found clothing for those children. That touched her heart, and she began Grateful Hearts, and it's a huge warehouse in your city, and she provides all kinds of things, not only for mothers with hungry children and people who need clothing, but for dozens of other agencies who need support, as well as internationally when there is a crisis. So she's an amazing woman, and I know that's why you nominated her, and we're very pleased that you have nominated her. She's now going to be a good friend of Cypress College and us, and I thank you very much for the time. Oh, one more thing is our Americana program. We have given you 2 pages in it for the last several years, and we will do that again this year. This is your 2-page ad. Last year when you honored, we honored, because you nominated him, Kenny Brandyberry, another shining star from your city. So I'm going to leave this, and hopefully we'll get a nice color 2-page ad from you for our Americana Awards, and hopefully we'll see you on February 10th. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
So, here.
Go ahead.
So again, So I just wanted to say to Blair from the City Council, you know, there was a lot of competition. I know Rich and I were on the selection committee, and the mayor put you forward. And I would just say we're so honored to be able to have you in our city and to be a part of it. You know, all the good work that you do in this community, we're very appreciative for that. And you know, I think from up here in the City Council collectively, we'd like to have a table, and we'd help sponsor that too. So on our behalf, we'll be getting a table for us. So thank you for everything you do. We're looking forward to it. It's a great cause. Many of us that have been on the council, this Americana basically helps provide scholarships for kids. So it's even bigger than than what Blair is doing. It's for this entire part of Orange County. So we're very fortunate. My kids went there. My wife went there before she went on to the other schools. And so I can't say enough good stuff about Cypress College. So thank you again. And thanks for coming down here as the president of the university, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to also congratulate Blair. You know, she's one of those that flies under the radar, and she does stuff. If you need 100 turkeys over at the base for some soldiers, she shows up with them. Don't know where she gets them, but she's got them. She has an amazing ministry in Nicaragua, and she helps the hurting unconditionally. So I just think this award is so appropriate for her and Grateful Hearts, and I'm looking forward to February.
Me too.
Thank you. All right, next we have a presentation by Ken Riccarelli from Golden State Water Company.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I appreciate this opportunity to address the City Council and your constituents here. Tonight I'm going to talk about the 2017 GRC. That's our general rate case filing. We filed with the California Public Utilities Commission on July 22nd of this year. Little background on Golden State Water Company. We serve about 1 million Californians through just over 250,000 connections in 7 service districts throughout the state, and we operate 38 independent water systems and serve the communities through 20 CSAs. Los Alamitos is home of one of those CSAs. Our office is on Cherry Street for the Los Alamitos customer service area, which serves all of our customers in our West Orange County system, including Cypress, Los Alamitos, Stanton, the community of Rossmore, and some customers in La Palma, Garden Grove, and Buena Park. We have a 24-hour customer service center located in Anaheim here that serves all of our California service areas and our Bear Valley Electric Company. So what puts Golden State apart from our other water service providers is our aggressive investment in infrastructure. We have a 100-year replacement cycle on the average. That's twice the pace of typical water purveyors across the country. And when you see reports from the American Society of Civil Engineers, in general, our infrastructure gets a C- to a D+. That's not the case with Golden State Water Company's water infrastructure. We employ more than 500 scientists, engineers, and water experts throughout the state, and our focus is on trying to maintain and gain 100% customer service satisfaction. Oh, wrong button. There we go. So in Orange County, we serve 4 different areas and 43,300 customer connections. Besides the Los Alamitos service area, we also have the Placentia service area, which is about half the size of this Los Alamitos area. You can see a little map here of the West Orange County system that we're located in here. It's all collectively tied in together, so that offers us some good operational flexibility and offers us the ability to take either 100% imported water or 100% groundwater, depending on the feasibility and the conditions in those water supplies. Primarily, we have mostly residential customers, so about 86% of our customer base are residential, and about 11% commercial, industrial, and institutional, and then 3% other. As I mentioned, our water supply system, we're fortunate enough to be overlying the groundwater basin managed collectively by the Orange County Water District through all of its pumpers like Golden State. So our rates are determined by the California Public Utilities Commission, and this general rate case is an 18-month process where we are required to file for 3 years of projected rate needs, and our 2017 GRC is for rates that we're trying to get established for 2019, 2020, and 2021. So our rate structure is tries to recover the cost to provide reliable service to the community and the necessary infrastructure to provide that service. The rate case is ultimately determined by an administrative law judge. And one of the portions of the PUC, the Office of Ratepayers Advocates, plays the advocate for all of our ratepayers. And they highly scrutinize our filings. They request supplemental data and additional information throughout this whole process and try to make sure that our customers are treated fairly. About 76% of our expenses are fixed regardless of the amount of water that are used. That's to maintain and operate the infrastructure. And only about 70% of our revenue is collected from variable. Not only, but 70% of our revenue is variable. So that sometimes creates an imbalance, especially over the years that we just experienced with the drought and mandated water conservation. Our costs remained the same, but our revenue decreased substantially as we were required to cut back on water supplies and water demands. Our customers were required to cut back on those demands. So we just, the 2014 rate case that was filed in July of 2014 and should have been for rates in effect 2016, 17, and 18, that decision was just granted and those rates became effective in April of 2017. So this was over a 30-month process on the last one, and primarily the complications were again caused by mandated conservation by the state. So the new rates went into effect in April, and then there were several catch-up provisions through water rate adjustment mechanism and our modified cost balancing account. Because that decision was handed down so late, a lot of accounting and a lot of retroactive rate increase essentially came into effect after April, and that's partially what our customers are seeing right now. The average residential customer using about 12 CCF per month. CCF is about 750 gallons, 748 to be exact. The average customer uses about 12 per month, and they would see a net increase of about $5 on their bill, just on the increase for the fixed charge and the commodity charge, not including the surcharge catch-up. So as I mentioned, the 2017 GRC filing came right on the tail end of the 2014 implementation of the rate increase. And we understand, obviously, our customers have voiced concerns about these cost increases. But we include, again, the infrastructure needed to maintain supply and water, a reasonable and responsible water service. Some of the cost factors that are driving up these rates are higher taxes and regulatory fees, voter-approved initiatives through the legislature, and the fact that our water supply costs themselves. We purchase all the water that we serve, whether it's from the groundwater basin or from imported sources from the state and Colorado River. Those costs have gone up 30% in the past 2 years. So here's by far the primary driver of rate increases is the investment in the infrastructure. And as a regulated utility, we are granted a profit on the investment in infrastructure. So we don't mark up the cost of water or the cost to provide the service. We do get a rate of return on that investment. And this is a breakdown of some of that investment in this West Orange County system alone. About $5.4 million in pipelines, just over $3.25 million in well upgrades, and then about 2.8, just under 3 million in street improvements. That includes coordination with city projects throughout our service area, replacement of old hydrants as they break, replacement of valves as we're exercising them and they break. We end up digging up little parts and pieces of the streets all over the place, but that's again to maintain a reliable infrastructure. And then we replace our meters and our services as they leak and as they become too old to be accurate. And we do that on a regular basis based on manufacturers' recommendations, AWWA standards, and PUC regulations. So over $13.7 million in investment in infrastructure in this 2017 GRC, which is across 19, 20, and 2021. So the net effect of this GRC is essentially about $2.08 per month per residential customer, and that's based on 11 CCF. Why did that go down? Well, mandated conservation is still being, even though the state lifted the mandate, customers are still practicing good water use habits. So in general, the demands have decreased, and that is all factored into the cost. So we have some programs, and a lot of this information, all of this information is on our website, but we have a care program similar to Southern California Edison, where families on fixed incomes at certain income levels are able to get some help with their water bills. We also have a military family relief program and numerous conservation rebates programs. Again, a lot of information on our website. Any of our customers can get free indoor and outdoor water conservation kits simply by contacting our customer service area, and we can get them mailed out or delivered to them. So this is I'll leave this slide up, our 800 number. That gets you customer service to all of our customers 24/7. And again, a lot of information on our website, and hopefully some of the positive media we're also giving turkeys away again this year through our Operation Gobble. We give about 7,700 turkeys throughout the state every year. We're just under 250,000 turkeys given through this program since it was started in 1989. Los Alamitos, we gave away 100 last week. Precious Life Shelter, the Casa Youth Shelter, and American Legion were the recipients through partnership with Assemblyman Travis Allen's office. We appreciate serving the community, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions? I had one just while you're here at the mic. So this increase started in August, correct? The 2014 increase started in August?
The 2014 actually started in April okay. 20th.
So I'm getting some pretty irate residents talking about their water bill going up just recently, like in October. And they're talking about a WRAM/MCBA surcharge for recovering costs for drought regulations, and another one for recovering balances in memo accounts. So if you could just explain what those are, because it sounds like some of them, their water bills have doubled in October.
Sure. Beside the rate case that we file and try to do in a forward-thinking manner, so those are proposed and projected rates based on our expected costs. We also incur unexpected costs that can't be planned that far in advance. For example, the cost of mandated water conservation. Again, we had to increase our outreach programs. We had to do more work and incur more costs. Those costs have to be tracked very, very closely, and we have to report the accounting and file all that accounting with the PUC. They'll look over that information, and if they determine that these were true costs and necessary costs, then they'll grant us adjustments through these rate adjustment mechanisms. That WRAM is a water rate adjustment mechanism. So through other filings with the PUC, they determine if the costs that were incurred are fair and we can recover those costs. Those costs are typically spread out through 12 months, 18 months, maybe 24 months, depending on the impacts to the customers and what they think is going to be fair. So the other part of that is the MCBA, the Modified Cost Balancing Account. We are guaranteed our costs for water and power. So whatever the costs are that we have to purchase water and pump it throughout the community, so the power for the booster pump stations and the wells. Again, we have to account for that separately and file those costs ultimately and true them up with the PUC. So if we over-projected, then there'll be a credit to the customers. And it's all built into the total on that bottom line. If we under-projected and we can show that our costs truly did go up, we don't control those costs. Those costs are fixed by our water suppliers. Then those go into those adjustments. So those surcharges, they come and they go. They sometimes grow and they sometimes reduce. One of them fell off at the end of October, about 47 cents on the commodity charge. It was one of the 20-month ones that was running. So some of those were caused, again, by the compression of that delay in the rate case filing for 2014.
So you don't have to go through the same process when you're doing surcharges. How did you communicate to the residents that their bill was going to go up and possibly double in a month? Because this is throwing people off.
Yeah.
And they said the same usage from last October to this October, and their bill doubled because of these surcharges that weren't flushed out here in public. And I'm curious to see how you communicated with them.
Those are typically communicated on the water bill and through our website and other outreach. But double sounds like that sounds
It's
difficult to imagine.
It's a lot. There's a lot of residents complaining substantial increases just in October. I mean, I'm sure your phones are lighting up because mine was.
Yeah, I'm not actually certain that I know
So
that
surcharges, there's no way we can plan to say our bill's going to go up next month or not. Like this, we know the bill is going to go up. But on surcharges, there's just get implemented whenever you true up. And
every time that we file with the PUC2, we're required to provide a public file notice. Those sometimes do fly under the radar because they happen so often. Not everybody wants to read them. When they do read them, it's legal speak and not always sometimes difficult to follow. But those advice letters and filings follow a procedure, required by the PUC. Again, the timing of them is sometimes difficult though, because we'll file and these rates may become effective 30 days after we file. They may be delayed from the PUC. So it's a little bit difficult to get advance notice. What happens is when they become effective, we make it clear on the bill and have those numbers to light up the customer service center if there's questions or issues. Some of the things that we don't control, obviously, and folks are probably sensitive about this. Weather patterns change. They change throughout the years, and some folks are surprised to find out that they're actually using more water. And when they find that out, they can either adjust, their use or take other measures. So.
But if you have a drought management surcharge, we've been in a drought more years than we haven't been. How do you justify that in October when we've been told we're not necessarily in a drought, but now we're being charged a surcharge for a drought management program?
Again, that's to cover costs that have already been spent.
Okay.
So thank you for coming down here and talking to us.
Sure.
Very similar to the mayor, we do get a lot of questions on this. To make it clear to the community, Golden State Water Company, can you talk a little bit about the governance? Because very similar to if community people did not like the job we were doing, they would come to that podium and tell us for sure that they didn't like what we were doing. Where do people go to have a direct interaction with the board for Golden State Water?
There's really not direct interaction with the board. The board is a multinational group. The interaction has to occur at our office level or at our customer service level, and with our general office, the GO in San Dimas. We hope that interaction can occur at the customer service level and at the district level, which is, the buck stops with me at the district level. Mm-hmm. So, if a lot of customers are calling the city and they're not calling Golden State or they're not getting the answers they need from Golden State, I'd absolutely like to know about that.
Okay. And then, I served in the Orange County Sanitation District, and we went through a rate package. We didn't have to go through the California Public Utilities Commission, but we were able to benchmark, basically the sanitation services or wastewater treatment versus all the different districts, Irvine Ranch Water District, et cetera. Do you guys have information for Golden State Water on benchmarking against other municipalities that aren't in your region or coverage, so that it would be able to help us when we're having discussions with our residents to say, trash contracts or whatever, hey, this is what you pay here, but if you're in Huntington Beach, that's commensurate with the water bill that they would have. Anything that we would be able to point people to for benchmarking?
We don't have anything prepared that I'm aware of, but we can certainly put something together. As you know, benchmarking, you can kind of run that story depending on how you want it to end up. So we could pick, very expensive agencies, or we can pick agencies that are nearby. There's so many variables that go into those costs, though, and most municipal agencies, they sometimes invest in infrastructure, and sometimes they hold back those rates, and sometimes that can is kicked down the road for infrastructure. So that's the big difference, as I mentioned, in a public utilities commission governed water service, or any utility, is that we're incentivized to invest in the infrastructure to maintain a reliable system for our customers.
Yeah, the example that a lot of people use is Yorba Linda Water District. So they got fed up with that rate increase, so they actually did a recall on 2 or 3 of the board members and got them replaced. And obviously, we're not thinking of that. But when you're on the front line here and there's really no governance process where people can go and address the board, like you said, I think what you're recommending is make sure that they call you with your contact information that's up there, and that's the best way to be able to get their voice heard, correct?
Absolutely. Sometimes, folks have leaks, like even in their irrigation system. They just don't know about it until it gets hot. They're watering more, and their bill just expands, exponentially. And then they realize, well, shoot, this, there is a reason behind it, and our customer service representatives can help them with some of those things.
Okay.
So we'd appreciate an opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Sure.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, oral communications. At this time, any individual in the audience may come forward to speak on any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Remarks are to be limited to not more than 5 minutes per speaker. Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council, and faculty with City Council support staff. My name's John Bonfani. I think I've been here.
Yeah, you're breaking stuff.
I can talk like this too. This is the third meeting that I've attended. I'm here. I have a commercial property, 3561 Howard Avenue, and I'm here about Assembly Bill 1826. This is a state law that was passed requiring the city to adopt a program regarding recycle of solid waste and also organic waste. I think organic waste is required to be implemented beginning of next year. And it's been the City Council's, I think, direction at this point to take some recommendations from its staff regarding the passage of an 8.2% increase across all commercial properties in the city of Los Alamitos. I don't think that's fair, and I wanted to elaborate on that. It apparently, City Council has used the Republic to provide himself some information, and I took it upon myself to talk to the city clerk and get a document that indicated that Republic has identified 11 properties in the city who currently would be required to comply with this law. And I think it's the City Council's position that they wish to evaluate this organic waste program and pass the cost along all approximate 650 commercial properties. And I don't think that that's the right approach. I think that the staff has seen and has been identified, and I provided a document with what I received from the city clerk, Wendy, and you can see the 11 properties that have been identified that need to comply. I don't think it's a good idea that the City Council expands the scope of this state law to be passed amongst 650 commercial properties. I think that's not what the intent of the law was intent to those properties that provided a certain amount of organic waste would be required to comply with this law. And so passing it along at 8.2% is expedient, but not necessarily fair. I have one 3-yard bin. It's picked up once a week, and it's half full. I won't have to comply with the organic component. In 2018, I won't have to comply with the solid waste component in 2019 unless the City Council decides to expand the scope across everybody. It's only 8.2%, so it's not a big number. I think my trash bill's $135 a month. So what's 8.2 on that? Cost me 10, 12 bucks? But that's not really the point. The point is we need to be responsible for our own actions. And yourselves have this document in front of them, and when I look down this list, I'm sort of bothered. I'm a little bit offended. I think the city council has this in front of them. There's the 11 properties. I could pick out a few here. I mean, one that just stands out to me, I look at Los Alamitos Unified School District, and if you look at the first page is the document that was provided to you by Republic. The second page is me just bringing it over to a spreadsheet and adding a couple more columns. And so when I look at that, I see Los Alamitos Unified School District would increase its annual cost by $4,479. Well, according to this law, they can pass that cost back on to the state, but you can get advice from legal counsel. Then I see that I see at Los Alamitos Hospital could increase its annual cost by $17,000, but then I'm paying 28% more on my health insurance premium, and Tenet just signed a 3-year contract. I look down here and I look at the military base, who has the lion's share of this, frankly more than half. And so am I being asked to subsidize the federal government and the military base for their organic waste? I don't produce any. I don't think it's reasonable that I should be paid or burdened the cost of that. As I go up here and I start looking at some of these other entities, these are going to be real costs. But can these costs be passed on to the consumers of those particular locations? I think so. It's unfortunate. It is an added cost. The state has mandated this law, and it's passing upon you, the city, to implement some program. And so I ask that you evaluate those programs out there. Try not to apply for the position of being the bad person. Don't take the responsibility of 11 entities and pass it on to 650, because that'll upset 630 people who will be frustrated and want to sign a petition or something. So I ask that you just reevaluate this. If the liability is passed on those who have the organic waste, then I think that's best in the best interest of all. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comments? I'll go ahead and close oral communications and bring it back to council announcements. And Richard, we'll start with you.
Okay. I attended the chamber breakfast, got to hear Colonel Bond talk about how he plans to maintain and improve the relationship with the base. Also spoke of the importance of the base to the community and vice versa. Was able to attend and say goodbye to Corey Lakin, who's leaving us for another city, and his legacy, the Winter Wonderland, is coming up. It's a great event if you get a chance to come. Also on the base, was able to attend. Michelle Steele brought the Veterans Affairs office over here, open one day right now, but as the business improves, hopefully we'll be able to serve our veterans at a more convenient facility. Would also like to ask all of you to shop for the Small Business Saturday, especially with the way we beat the small businesses up with the improvements here on the boulevard during the summer. Little extra dollars would surely help. Would like to request, Brett, that we look at leaving, or let's say studying, the 3 lanes on the boulevard that are now there before we restripe, and see how we want to go. And finally, we have applications available for commissioners. We have a lot of openings this time around. 4 park commissions, 2 planning, and 2 traffic. It's a great way to serve the community. Doesn't take a lot of time. Unless you're on the planning commission, you don't have to be on TV, which a lot of people don't like. But it is a great way to serve. So if you want to consider it, the deadline's coming up the first week of December. And get your application in. Thank you.
Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. So I attended the Orange County Mosquito and Vector Control District Board of Trustees meeting last week. And so far it's been not too terrible a year, but I guess one of the things in terms of West Nile virus and mosquito infestations. But I know I've said this before in the prior meeting, but the standing water, make sure you dump any standing water. And it turns out the one day-biting mosquito, the Aedes aegypti, They'll bother you during the day, and that's where the vector control really wants to get that call from you so they can set out traps and monitor the area. So if you're getting bit by mosquitoes during the day, those are the ones that please call in. And then the Aedes aegypti have an ability to put their eggs in some place that's dry, and then it'll hatch later when the conditions improve, such as when you water your lawn or when the rain falls. So again, watch for standing water and any places that might catch standing water. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
So a couple things. It's brought to my attention that there's been some interest that people have been concerned about Coyote Creek. And I had some discussions with one gentleman over the weekend, but I'd kind of done a little bit of research. And, Chief, I would just ask you, I run in that creek every day. So I don't, when I first heard, hey, we're worried about the homeless people potentially in the Coyote Creek, I'm thinking I don't see people there, and I'm there. And even over the 8 years of running down there, I do see them sometimes, but it's usually something that the city is pretty much on top of. Just as a data point, sometimes I think they might be looking at what's happening in Santa Ana and the Santa Ana riverbed, reading it and thinking the problem is here, but I'm trying to be sensitive that maybe there is. Any update from the what's going on in the Coyote Creek area down here, and whether we are having a little bit of an increase in homelessness here?
I'm not aware of any increase. I know that our homeless liaison officer, along with our patrol officers, frequent the Coyote Creek area, especially towards the 405 where they seem to have been. But they've been doing a lot of work in that area, and I'm talking about construction work. So it's a lot of them were displaced. And I know that I attended the Orange County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council meeting this past Friday, and one of the things that they were talking about there was also the nationwide program called Stepping Up. And it's dealing with mental illness specifically, but a lot of the folks in those creeks are have mental health issues, and so we're looking at that and kicking that program off as well. So that'll be a while. But we in terms of our census, we don't see any increase to the population down there. But we will respond if people call us and let us know that there is an issue down there. We're aware that there are people that are down there. But most of them aren't on the pathways and are secreted, actually, kind of in the area of Long Beach and little on the outskirts of Los Alamitos down towards the 405.
Yeah, and within about a year ago, we set up a police officer that was specifically focused on that. So if any of the residents had questions, they could call City Hall, and we would have somebody reach out to and talk to them about it.
They can call there. They can call directly to the police department, and we will certainly go out there like a call for service or anything and deal with any issues that they see that are ongoing at that time or just concerns. We'll have our homeless liaison officer go out there. They have a pretty good relationship with a few folks that we deal with on a regular basis.
Okay, great. Thank you. One of the other items that I wanted to bring up was kind of in the same discussion that I had over the weekend. Somebody had brought up the new signage on Los Al Boulevard. And so I live up in Greenbrook by the high school, so we definitely pass it. And one of the questions was, hey, what's the view of the signage? Did we really need to know where the hospital was? Because this is such a small town. Did we really need to be that deliberate? If you don't know, then you probably aren't from here. And something I'd put out to the community. You heard Councilmember Murphy right now. He's making a move to restripe the Los Al Boulevard somehow. I'm not sure yet.
Study.
But it's a study. So I would just put out to the community, if you guys got concerns with the boulevard, I mean, that's a product of 10 years worth of work. And what I explained over the weekend was, to get that money, we had a huge issue within the community, when I first got on the council, which was, you went through Seal Beach, you said that shops at Rossmore, you work your way to Hawaiian Gardens, and it was starting to be aged out here. And it was something that, when I first started on the council in 2006, it's like, I really want to do something and try to maintain that level of our city. There was previous people that would say there's really no downtown for Los Al, so let's not get crazy. I get it, but you have to start somewhere. And then to start somewhere, this council, especially some of us have been on for a while, like Warren and I, We had to go get money from the local regional SCAG group to try and get a study. Then we had to get money. Then when we got our finances on track and were able to get our credit rating to a AAA, then we went and refinanced the park, and we're able to get money for the park and some work for the boulevard. And what I'm telling you is that to do that project, that a lot of people go, oh man, that's just, they just wrote a check. It took 8 to 10 years to put together the financing for it, and it's the community's boulevard, not ours. And so I would just say if there's people out there that when you're seeing it, they put in those new beautiful lights that makes it look kind of old, trees, there's another tree coming. If you have feedback, comments, call City Hall or send emails to us. You get on our website, you can send them to, the mayor loves this. So I would definitely send it to Mayor Hasselbrink. But definitely with the signs, I get it if, But I just want to say, definitely all of us are very conscientious that we want that to be perfect. And people ask me, well, Troy, didn't you see the sign, in the drawing? And even a city manager's like, Troy, you approved it. It's like, yeah, I guess I did. But I remember I worked for, 10 years to get the money for it. I wasn't so focused on the sign. It's the small things, though. And as a community, we really are trying to make the quality of life better here in Los Alamitos. And I would just say, let your voice be heard, please. And there's no sinister plot here. We just really want to try and do the best we can. The other thing I would say is Rivers and Mountains Conservancy. We're finally putting an end to me talking about it all the time up here because I think I got voted. They put a new person on the board. City manager, could you just give an update on because the seat that got the Coyote Creek and the funding for the bike track. Basically I turned out there, and I think they put a new board member on, correct?
Yes, they did.
The mayor of La Habra.
The mayor of La Habra. So that ends an era, though, for Los Alamitos. Long before me, Ken Parker, I think Dean Gross. So it took a lot of teamwork to get what we got out of the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, and I just wanted to thank the council for supporting me. I know every time it comes up, if you're not the mayor, you got to beg and plead, hey, support me for this. And everybody's been very cool. And we did about probably 11 consecutive years. And most cities don't have that level of support. They have a change in the council, and the first thing they do is take them off the fund boards. So I think with that, well, Vector sounds pretty fun too, but that mosquito description was really good. I think, Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. I did participate in the trunk or treat. There were about 3,000 attendees, and if you've ever been to Little Cottonwood Park and you watch 3,000 people descend on that park, it's quite overwhelming. They went through tons of candy. We had bounce houses, we had food, there were games, there were pie eating contests. It's just turned into a really neat tradition. We call it dress rehearsal for the big day of Halloween. And these kids were just as adorable as could be. Park and Rec and staff pulled this off. It was just absolutely spectacular, so I want to thank you for all your work on that. I did participate in the Chamber of Commerce golf tournament along with our new ringer, the city manager. He's now available for all local golf tournaments if you need a foursome. He's quite good, so we had a good time in that, supporting the chamber. I did participate in the city selection committee for Orange County. I was reappointed to the Orange County Senior Citizens Advisory Council, and our city manager was reappointed to the Waste Management Council.
The Orange County Waste Commission.
There you go. And then, as Troy had mentioned, the mayor of La Habra is now Rivers Mountains Conservancy. Our other Orange County seat is the mayor of Seal Beach, Sandra Masalevitz. So we're represented, and we had some good heart-to-hearts about how we really need to come in and represent on that predominantly LA County board. Mm-hmm. Did attend the chamber breakfast with Colonel Bond. He was just spectacular as far as he gets the whole community effort, and that base needs the community just as much as the community needs that base, so that was good. He's doing some very good things over there. Attended the Area 3 Command for the police department. This is our new thing that our police department and our chief has implemented. City is split up into 4 areas. Area 3 is over by St. Hedwig with Rossmore Highlands, and they just did a meet and greet, very well attended, neighbors getting to know each other. Long Beach Animal Services was out there, CERT was out there, neighbor to neighbor, so it was a real nice just community effort of just getting to know each other, so that was great. Was able to speak at the grand opening for the Veteran Support Services Center, as Richard had mentioned. This is great for us in our community. Right now, if any veterans need to get any type of services, whether it be ID cards, career training, questions about their benefits, they either need to go to the very, very busy VA hospital over in Long Beach, or they need to go to Santa Ana. And you want to talk to a veteran who's in his 80s and trying to do that, it's just overwhelming. So they're really not using their services. So this is a great service center. They call it a one-stop shop. It's right inside the base. After you go through security, it's very easy to get to. Right now, they'll be open every Thursday, and as traffic and demand continues, they plan on opening up more and more and hopefully turning this into a Monday through Friday full-time service center. So I want to thank Michelle Steele's office for getting that in. It was opened without using any taxpayers' dollars. So it's a really great service being on the base there. It was just a no-brainer. I did want to remind everybody, December 2nd is the Winter Wonderland, just over here by St. Isidore's. We're going to have food and snow and performances and vendors and Mr. and Mrs. Claus and the lighting of the Christmas tree, and that's another just great tradition that is growing every year, and I just want to invite everybody out there. The tamale queens are going to be out there selling their homemade tamales, so if you go for just that, that's worth it too. And with that,
Mayor, could you talk about the race on the base?
oh, we did. Thank you. We did sign our memo of understanding on Tuesday with the base in using all of their regulations and everything else that they had to jump through, and we jumped through with them. We finally got that blessed, and so that is on for February 24th.
February 23rd and 24th.
Thank you. I did have the date right. Okay. And we're hopefully going to use that template to get the next events going, such as 4th of July and also the 2019 race on the base. So it was months and months. I think Corey lost some hair, got some more gray hair on that, just trying to jump through all the different military regulations. So that was great to be able to do, and we're off for race on the base for 2018.
That was my report. No, just want to thank the mayor for her part in that, and Colonel Bond, as has been mentioned, and the city council, and Corey, who's in Culver City now, but also Emlyn and Ron for all the hard work putting that together. So we, as the mayor mentioned, we have a memorandum of agreement now for Race on the Base 2018, and Colonel Bond has promised to start using that template for 4th of July right away. So we want to capture this energy that we have and have an MOA for race for 4th of July and then for future years as well. So we feel very encouraged, but
Yep.
thanks for that, and happy holidays coming up. Thanksgiving.
Thank you. All right, on to warrants. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kusamoto.
Aye.
Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Edgar.
Aye.
Mayor Hasselfring.
Aye. Consent calendar. All consent calendar items may be acted upon by one motion unless a council member requests separate action on a specific item. Do I have anybody that wants to pull anything?
I just want to note that I'll abstain or recuse myself on D. I have a conflict on D. I'm within 500 feet of this property, so I'm unable to take action on the
Okay.
item.
If no one else has anything to pull, I'll go ahead and move for the balance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Unanimously. Okay, wow. Okay, so we're moving over to ordinances. Item 12A. Get over there.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I believe the Captain Carr is going to do the staff report on this particular item.
Thank you, City Manager Plumley. Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. Before you is a staff report, which was part of our promotional process that I participated in September. This report that is attached with the ordinance is regarding the unmanned aircraft systems, or the UAS, also commonly referred to as a drone. So the interest of the use of UASs started several years prior to the need for this ordinance. This was something that back in May of 2016, the Orange County Grand Jury published a report titled "Drones, Know Before You Fly." Prior to publishing this report, The grand jury sought out input from all obvious stakeholders. Chief Nunez attended the review of this report at the Office of the Grand Jury and provided them with helpful feedback. The adopted and published report has been submitted and is part of your council package. Ultimately, the grand jury's report made a recommendation that the county and all cities within the county adopt a local ordinance that would promote the safe use and appropriate regulations in compliance with the FAA rules and regulations in regard to the use of UASs. In August of 2016, the city responded to the grand jury, agreeing mostly with the grand jury's findings, and advised that we'd be producing an ordinance sometime in 2017. In November of 2016, the Association of California Cities, Orange County, met with the stakeholders regarding drafting a model ordinance for the entire county. In March of 2017, the ACC OC published this model ordinance, which has also been attached to your council packages. This was the framework for our ordinance that is sitting before you. However, with Los Alamitos being close to the Joint Forces Training Base and having the only Army airfield in the region, there's additional language that we added, and this was the 5-mile radius restriction where people are required to get permission to fly. I also contacted the FAA regarding any issues that this ordinance could encounter. And in reviewing it, we got a sense of clarity regarding the aspect of enforcement for us. Real simply, the city, specifically the police department, will enforce any violations of the ordinance in regards to landing and takeoff, while reporting all violations alongside JFTB, Air Traffic Control Tower, any violations of the UAS operator in flight, which falls under the jurisdiction of the FAA. Staff believes that the attached UAS ordinance currently meets the needs, standards, and expectations the city of Los Alamitos has in order to preserve the quality of life and safety for the residents, visitors, and businesses that comprise our community. And currently only anticipated fiscal impacts are those that are unknown for the enforcement from the normal expenses necessary to enforce municipal codes. Therefore, staff is recommending council move to approve the 2 listed recommendations, introduced for the first reading, read only by title, and wait further reading of ordinance 2017-11, and to have the city attorney, Dowd, read the title of ordinance 2017-11, so that council can proceed to amend Title 8 of the Health and Safety section of the LAMC by adding 8.52, titled Unmanned Aircraft Systems, regarding the UAS's operation within city limits. With that concludes my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns council would have me address during this presentation.
Thank you. I'd first like to open it up for public comments if there are any. And seeing none, I'll bring it back to council. Warren?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, thank you, Captain. I guess the question I have, though, the part that, with respect to reporting violations of this code, right, once we enact it, I imagine then if a neighbor is recklessly flying a drone, one could call up the police and then perhaps find the person violating code. Is that kind of how that reporting, the mechanism might work?
Yeah, so anything in the air is under the FAA control. So if we see that they're reckless endangerment, getting too close to power lines, something that's flying near manned aircraft.
But that, I mean, when you say we, but so how do you know about it if?
Well, if a citizen reports it to us, or if we happen to observe it, then we would just notify the FAA and let them take care of their recourse.
Okay.
Councilmember Kuzmoto, like all other crimes that maybe not in our jurisdiction, we would also try to intervene and identify the person that's obviously committing the violation or is acting recklessly with the UAS, and then and asking to cease and desist from that kind of activity. Hopefully they would, and but we have a responsibility to further report that, as Captain Carr has stated, to the FAA in violation of possible regulations.
Okay, because one of the things in terms of, I think the findings from the grand jury on the, was recommendations having to do with educating the public, basically, I guess, anybody within our jurisdiction, right? So that takes resources. And how do we intend to educate the public on safe use of drones? Is there something, I mean, this to me is a cost item that, I'm looking at you, Brett, now you have to go out and figure out how to communicate the safe handling of these unmanned aerial systems, so people don't do something stupid like flying the path of a helicopter, or even on the streets during rush hour traffic, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, as Captain Carr mentioned in the fiscal impact, really the only thing we've anticipated is the enforcement side of it, if it's reported to us. But education, we can publicize it through social media in terms of what our policy is, but it's more of a county-wide policy that we've tweaked, we've modified to take care of takeoffs and landings. So it's
okay.
mostly just a model.
Yeah, I understand, but I think that, again, looking at the grand jury report, it says that we have to educate. I mean, this is the part that, lucky you, go figure out a way to educate people that may or may not want to be educated. That's number one. Number two, it's should learn this before they even fly these things, but may or may not, right? Because 13 years old or older is they have to apply for FAA and registration for their drone. I mean, it's a lot of bureaucracy. But my question is on the misdemeanor and the cost recovery. Is that something that we can kind of look at to also encourage safe use of drones and then recover any kind of cost for education? Is that kind of figured out anywhere in here?
If I might, Councilmember, we, in terms of sitting in the meeting with the grand jury, the question did come about, well, what's the extent of the education that we have to produce, because we're not drone experts or AS experts. So how are we supposed to educate them? And the simply said that we make a good effort, of producing literature, whether it be through social media or what have you, and saying that this is the do's and don'ts. And they had a list of stuff as well. So it was our thinking that we could easily do that in terms of the educational piece, put that on our social media as part of our area command kind of meetings, and handouts. So there is probably some cost for paper and ink, but we're not, in terms of actually educating them we're just educating them of things that are safe and unsafe.
So my kind of thought would be the labor hours tied up with even just gathering all the information, making
Right.
it available, and then keeping it current, right? That's a cost that, you're going to incur, whether, it's going to take away someone from doing a job they should be doing to do this job.
And I don't know, because we haven't worked it out with the court in terms of, what the actual fines would be in their structure and how that would come back to the city for any kind of educational piece, but certainly it's something, we can look at.
Okay, 'cause that'd be my, my concern is how to cost recover, and then if we don't do a good enough job, right, and that'll be sometime in the future, we'll look back at this point in time and say, hey, you didn't do a good enough job, guess what, we're going to sue you because we had this bad accident, or, you didn't do a good enough job. That's what I'd be afraid of in this kind of thing, and I don't like this. I don't like this kind of thing being mandated on us. Why is it us? Really, this is just a federal regulation that should have been carried out, pretty robustly there. So, I mean, they kind of stick it to us. And
I think you make a good point that staying up on the legislation, because the legislation is changing annually, it's changing all the time. So we have some best practice model right now, but I think that we'll probably have to alter it at some point down the future for uses, and even uses for law enforcement and other entities, because right now there isn't anything in there in terms of governmental use of those UASs.
thank you. No other questions?
I just want to say, I agree with Warren's thought that this really shouldn't be at our level. It's much like 11B with the granny flats, bigger agencies just making up laws that we have to follow at our expense, and we're not an endless supply of money here. And, every dollar we take in, we spend. So as Warren just pointed out, if an officer's doing something here, he's not doing something else, we'd probably have a higher priority on. Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion for this?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you need to, I'm sorry. You need to read the title.
Thank you, Madam
Thanks.
Mayor. Before the council is ordinance number 2017-11, entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Los Alamitos, California, amending Title 8 Health and Safety by adding Chapter 8.52 of the Los Alamitos Municipal Code, Unmanned Aircraft Systems."
Okay, now we'll do an all in favor.
Aye.
All right. Okay, 12B.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This is a follow-up to the master fee schedule recently adopted by the City Council, and the City Clerk has gone back and reviewed our code as it relates to the fees that were recently adopted, and there's some cleanup items that are included in your staff report. So I'll have the City Clerk, Wendy Quintanar, give a staff report on this.
Thank you. As City Manager mentioned, this is mostly a cleanup item. On July 31st, the council adopted our master fee schedule by resolution. Since then, staff has identified several sections of the municipal code that have specific fee references. So we're now recommending removing fee references from the municipal code and updating the master fee schedule to include these enacted fees. It's a two-step process. The first step is to revise the municipal code to remove the references and direct users to the master fee schedule. And the second step is to ensure that those fees being taken out of the code are included in our master fee schedule. Several of the adopted fees were not included in the schedule, and it's recommended they be added at this time. These established fees have already been adopted by council, therefore it's not necessary to hold a public hearing or notice the item. Staff is recommending council adopt the master revised schedule and introduce ordinance 2017-12. Copies of ordinance 2017-12 have been placed up at the dais and updated online, so those are available for the specific references. I'm available for any questions.
Just to stay consistent, I will open this up for public comment. And seeing none, I'll bring it back here. Any comments or questions?
No.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll
A
second.
second? And City Attorney, I'll have you read it.
Thank you. Before the City Council is ordinance number 2017-12, entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Los Alamitos, California, amending the Los Alamitos Municipal Code to remove various references to specific fees and refer users to the master fee schedule adopted by City Council resolution." Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Okay, on to discussion items. Item 13A, consideration of the city council vacancy created by resignation of former councilmember Josh Wilson. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. City Council, these next two discussion items on your agenda, 13A and 13B, are related to the vacancy created by Councilmember Josh Wilson, who was sitting in that seat and is no longer part of this City Council and has moved with his family to Montana to take on a great career opportunity. And with that, we have laid out, City Clerk has put together a staff report to lay out options for the City Council's consideration so that staff can receive the direction from the City Council on how to proceed with the vacancy that has been created. And the next two items, as I mentioned, Wendy, their City Clerk, has put together both of these staff reports, so I will have her give the staff report on item A, and we'll go through that, and then follow that with item B.
On November 13th, Josh Wilson resigned from his position on the City Council. Per Government Code Section 36512 and Section 502 of the City Charter, Council has two options to fill the vacancy. You can appoint a registered voter from the city or hold a special election. Should the majority of the Council opt for appointment to fill the vacancy, it must occur within 60 days of the date of resignation, which will be January 12, 2018. The Council may decide the manner in which Council appoints someone. Should Council wish to appoint someone for the vacancy, it would be prudent to hold a special meeting to ensure there are 5 members for the December meeting. And staff is recommending Council discuss the possible dates for a special meeting. Should Council wish to hold a special election or fail to appoint someone within 60 days, if we consolidate with the county, the costs are estimated to be $35,000 to $39,000. And another item that council should discuss is the term. Since former Councilmember Wilson's unexpired term was more than 2 years remaining, our charter allows the majority vote of the council to either appoint for the entire unexpired term or appoint for until the next general election, which will be November 6, 2018. We've outlined 3 options for council to discuss. Option 1 would be to advertise for applications of interested parties, hold interviews, and appoint at a special meeting. Option 2 would be for council to submit names of their appointees for consideration and interviewing. And option 3 would be to hold a special election. Options 1 and 2 will require the council to decide before appointment the length of the term, date for interviews, and whether appointment would occur at a special or regular meeting. And fiscal impact, of course, is dependent on what the council chooses. I'm available for any questions. Thanks.
All right, I will open this item up for public comments. Do we have any? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back here for discussion. Who wants to start? Go for it, Warren. Or Richard, I'm sorry.
Okay.
At least you didn't call him Josh. Yeah.
It's like, what?
That's you.
I'd like to ask my colleagues, my feeling on the various questions are, I feel we need to appoint rather than spend the money on an election. I believe we should go for a 3-year term, and I think we should accept applications rather than try to appoint nominees. I also think we should develop a list of questions for a special meeting sometime in early December. And that's really my thoughts.
Okay.
So I kind of have a little bit of a different view on the term, but I do agree with the appointment is probably a better solution than a special election with the logistics and the cost. But I would propose that we would appoint until next year, and then in the next year's election, we will have 4 seats open, and there is a provision in our code for that, the top 3 finishers of that contest would sit for the 4 years, and the 4th place finisher would fulfill the rest of the expired the Josh Wilson's term that he vacated. So that would be what I'd want, because I believe that's fairest for the community. We'd get to vote all the people up here in for that for those seats. So that would be my kind of where I'd support that as far as appointment.
Yeah, I'm consistent with Warren, exactly. So I think appoint, let the person serve out to the next election, and let the community decide who they want longer term. I definitely don't want to spend the extra money, and I think I'm sure that to be able to appoint somebody, there's great people in this community, and we've got a really good, well-working together council right now, and so I think the risk is low that even if the decision wasn't the optimum, I think we could work with just about any good candidate. So I'm open for that.
Okay. Pretty much follow along the same appointment. I would like to accept applications rather than leave that onus on us. Troy, you and Warren were at the last one in 2009.
I was not on the.
Oh, you weren't.
I wasn't on the council.
Troy, you were.
Yeah.
And I just think applications is probably the most transparent. We don't know what's out there or who's out there. I tend to go more with Richard as far as the term. I never like to see four out of 5 up for re-election. When we can have somebody serve through 2020 with the remainder of the 3 years, but I'll go with whatever my colleagues think is best. The 2 have been here the longest and probably know the best.
Yeah, I guess, Mayor, 2009, we had a similar situation where we had to go through a process with the council member departing. And, it's kind of interesting if you look at it historically, because we picked who we thought, and we'll talk a little bit about the process, but, in the end, the voters said, no, that wasn't the person we wanted. And so, I don't know. For me, the reason why I just think it's really important to get it to the voters to decide is I think it's, I don't know, I just think it's important for them to kind of have responsibility for, what comes next. And I guess selfishly, this is my last term. I'm done in a year. I have a vested interest. I'd love to appoint somebody, have them on for 3 years, and know that there's a bridge to somebody. That especially if I could have a hand on it, it's a pretty good deal. But I don't know. I have to put myself now, as I'm getting closer to the end of being on the voter side, thinking I'd like to pick the people that get on the council and versus us up here. So, but I would guarantee the community to pick in the short term. We absolutely could do that. And I think we do a good job. The other thing I would say is when we went through the hearing process and we got applications, it would. I won't say it sucked. It was not the funnest thing because you have a lot of really great people that apply. Sometimes it's your neighbor, sometimes it's your buddy, and then you're kind of torn because if you go and you apply on the commissions, the second question, and by the way, the commission interviews I've never been a fan of because there's 5 generic questions, and by the end, my son could have answered those if he was rehearsed, and it wouldn't have helped me make a better decision. But the question is, hey, how do you put the benefit of the community above your own self-interest or interests of your neighbors? And I think, all of us are very entrenched in this community, and it's hard because it's going to make us have to, really do a deep search of what's best for the city versus what's best for for us for the next 50 years living here. So it's a tough one, and we always preach that it should be easy to make that decision, but pragmatically it's not, and for that I think it brings on a harder situation. I would say that if we open it up and you're going to get applications from the community, and we have a lot of great people. I see great commissioners in here right now and community volunteers, but something to think about as a consideration would be, we pick or appoint commissioners, and the commissioners are extensions of the council. That is the first vetting, that these are people that have shown the dedication to the community and they've done their part, and it's easily verifiable. I can go and see if somebody is on the planning commission and it only is making every other meeting versus somebody that's fully in there. I can actually go back and read, because I do all the commission meetings, and see how these people voted and what their contribution was. So maybe for me, the little bit of a variant on this is how far do we want to open this up wide to have a city council seat open up that we may make for 3 years on an untested territory. I think that takes you to the voter side of, hey, did the voters really vet the person through that process? And I think the commissioners provide a proxy to the closest thing that we can to the community to say they have the public service they've shown. I'm not saying you have to be a current commissioner or a previous one, but I think to try and streamline this, because I'm concerned that by opening it up, taking applications, what's going to be the process, open session where we're going to interview those people? Is it 5 generic questions that mean not a whole lot? But legally we want to make it equal, so we ask generic questions and it adds not a lot of value? Or do we try to look at it from an appointment perspective to short that process and really don't draw people's emotions into this and just be efficient as a city? Let's make some decisions, let's move on, let's let the voters decide this. So for me, I'm hoping that maybe we can get past that. It seems like directionally we're going towards a point. We'll deal with the term thing, but then the process, I think, becomes critical. In the last one, 2009, we were making some really hard choices, and again, at the end, the community, rejected the choice unequivocally, like in the next election. And there's people in the community that thought, the person showed really good that was in the appointment interviews, but didn't really have the time in the community to be able to prove themselves out, and I don't know. So that would just be from the 2009 experience, something to think about.
No, it's good to know.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and try and make a motion then,
Okay.
if I may. So just kind of taking these things in parts. I would move that we appoint a person to fill, we select the candidate by appointment, and it will be for until the next election, which is 2018. So my motion will be appoint the candidate, not the process, but just the point, and then the term would be until 2018, the election of November 2018. That's my
Could we
motion.
make that two motions?
What's that?
Could we split them?
Okay, so let me try this again. I'll move that the next seat is until 2018, the November 2018 election. Is that kind of what you're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. So it will be until 2018. You want to do the, so we,
You want to you want to do the one? You want to try and take a
I'm just
stab?
thinking there's a chance I'm up here as like the lone survivor in 2018, you know? So I would move that we agree we will appoint the next commissioner. There'll be no special election. Not a commissioner, councilman, without a special election.
and I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
That was how.
Yeah, that was the easy part.
So if I may, I think certainly watching the, when Troy was sitting up here and I was out there, it was rather painful. And in terms of the people that were brought forward as selectees by the then council, it's kind of tough for the people because they're submitting themselves to some tough question and tough scrutiny. So that part is kind of difficult. So, you know, I thought about it and how we would do this, and that certainly is a model, but the part about applications, I think, would be also probably one step removed from us selecting a champion, let's say, or two, however, because the then council could bring up to 2 individuals. So can you imagine, there's 4 people up here that bring 2 people each, so there's 8 candidates that have to be vetted. And then at the end, it kind of like, it looked like, I think what you're trying to say, Troy, one individual from the community that was selected was starting to look pretty good, but then was not selected ultimately, and it kind of, I think it sent a really bad message, you know, to that individual certainly, and that's kind of tough. So I'm kind of interested. I'm kind of like Richard's idea about getting applications, but I guess City Clerk, I have a question. So if you were to get applications, you would have to vet them to ensure they're a current registered voter in the city and that type of stuff, so the normal process, correct? So, anyways, that's just some other insight, and I'll let someone else make that motion.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what, I mean, unless we're actually going to talk about people now, I think we may have hit the impasse point, because I think the application process, if that's the direction we want to go, you know, that basically is the open up. Is that where you're heading?
Well, I think Richard's idea, right? I mean, that was,
I thought that was the fairest, you know, most transparent way. Nobody's lobbying us to, you know, get on there. As you said, I mean, just from the people who have spoken to me, I mean, this is not going to be fun by any means. We have one seat and many deserving candidates, and it's. I always joke the worst thing we do is tell commissioners we can't have you serve. This is even more important, and we're only allowed to pick one. But so I'd make the motion that we do accept applications, and then come back in a 2 or 3 week period and make a decision after interviewing the applicants.
What type of process for interviewing do you recommend? Is it, are we going the 5 generic question route, or are we trying to have an open, I mean, if we say it's an open and there's 20 people, then we're going to be spending a career trying to get to the one person. So what is, you know, what is your thoughts, like 3 moves into this thing?
My thought was this: you'd have like an opening statement. Who are you? You know, what's your history in the community? And then answer a few. They're generic questions, but you know, where do you stand fiscally? And this, you know, how would you view the surplus? What is the biggest problem in Los Alamitos? What's the best thing about Los Alamitos? And let them go from there. Just kind of really get them started, and see what they have to say.
I do think that's somewhat fair. I mean, I have gotten contacted from people that are interested, but unless we fairly start the gun and say, hey, if you weren't aggressive to do that, we didn't just make the decision based on who reached out to us. So I guess my biggest concern is how many people end up doing it, and as we start focusing towards the end of the year, does that become kind of a huge project to fill somebody being on just for the remaining couple years? But yeah, I mean, I would support that, Rich, if that's the direction we're heading.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the generic questions as long as they're generic because they're open-ended. We're starting the sentence and they're finishing it, and based on that, we can kind of see where everybody sits. So you want to make a motion on that process?
I'll make a motion that we accept applications for the new position.
Okay.
So can we define that a little bit more specifically? Just and maybe city clerk, with your perspective. I just want to be very clear that's not when we won't be open for like 8 weeks. It's a certain amount of time. What is the process that we're defining here?
So if it's council's desire to open the application period, we'd ask for a closing date, a special meeting date to interview the applicants, and then maybe 2 special meeting dates in case you need more time to interview the applicants, and then you would appoint them at one of those special meetings, hopefully before the December meeting. And then we would have the open-ended interview questions, the 5 that Richard had mentioned, an opening statement, what's your history in the community, where do you stand fiscally, what's your view on surplus, what's the biggest problem in the city, and what's the best thing about Los Alamitos, just to get them started. And those would be our opening questions for the interviews.
And the December date, that was my thing that I gave to staff.
Thank you.
I would like to see 5 of us sitting up here for the December meeting, because we meet once a month. If there were any large issues, or we tend to table those if we don't have a full council, and I don't want to delay something important for an entire month.
So we reorganize too, right?
Right.
Right.
So it's just, if we can have somebody sitting in this seat by that December 18th meeting, I just think it would help us move forward faster, especially with the reorg and everything else. So that's where that came from.
Could I ask, is there a minimum time we have to leave this open?
Like 10 minutes, or what do you want to do?
There's not a legal time to that leave
Okay.
it open, but you do have to make an appointment within 60 days, or it
Okay.
automatically goes to a special election.
The reason I ask is it looked like we could come back the 4th or the 11th of December, and that gives a couple weeks for people.
Right, because the December meeting's the 18th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I would suggest the 4th, and then we'd have the 11th if we need it. Or we could just be here a long time on the 4th.
Yeah, so if council chose December 4th, we would make the application period and most likely November 29th to give us time to pull all the applications together, ensure that they're registered voters, and get an agenda out to council. So it's a pretty quick turnaround
Which
time.
is this coming Friday.
It would be next
Friday.
Thursday.
Next Friday, okay.
Next Wednesday or Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, it's Wednesday.
Is that too fast, Wendy? Brett, what do you think?
No, it's probably fair. I think if it depends on, is there any definition on what goes into the application? I mean, Wendy can help screen the minimum requirements, but I think people that want to apply are going to be gung-ho to apply. It's probably a fair period of time, given the need, if you're going to appoint, to do it within 60 days, and if the goal is to try to come back on the 18th. That way, the 4th, if you have it on the 4th and you allow for the 11th, pick the 2 dates tonight, and then that's probably a fair turnaround time.
I'm in favor of that. Just, I want to kind of get there quickly, and then we'll go through the hard part. So if we could, that seems like a decent amount of time. People that really are following this know, and they're, just trying to give them time to get their application in.
Then we would do the recruitment period ending November 29th with first set of interviews starting December 4th.
And will you just take something to the commissioner's application and customize it towards city council?
Correct.
Okay.
And if you can, let the applicants know those in advance as well, just starting, right?
The questions?
Yes.
Yes.
So do I have a motion on that one?
So can I just, so we have how many questions? We have what the questions are. Do we want to have any, define a period of time for the interviews when you do that on December 4th? Because if you're going to be, you need to be consistent with the questions and probably consistent with the time period so you can flow through the meeting the right way. So 15 minutes. I mean, Wendy and I were kicking around 15 or 20 minutes.
Troy likes 10 minutes.
I know it's very short. For the commission interviews, they're generic questions, but it's very short. You may want to, and I had spoken with Councilmember Murphy about this too, but to really vet the right candidate for the next year, you may want to allow more time than you do for the commission interviews.
Yeah.
I was pushing for 30.
30?
Wow.
What if 8 people apply?
Huh?
What happens if 8 people apply?
No, it's a good problem to have,
Okay.
but I mean, we're doing something important here, and to sit down and talk to somebody about their long-term plans for the city, I just don't want to shortchange that. If it's shorter, that's great, but
If it runs late, I guess we always can schedule the 11th then, right?
Right.
Okay.
I just want to give everybody their due process, and so they can really do a proper interview. And I think anything else would be shortchanging. We'll have dinner.
And no limitation on the number of applications.
I don't think you can.
I don't think so.
How about
No.
3?
First
How about
three,
2?
first 3 inbred, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, Black Friday. Yeah.
Clarify no limitation.
It's a complicated
Okay,
motion
do I have-
here.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion with that one?
Yeah, I'll make a motion for
Give me the
keeping that open. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
Rolling.
I'll second yours. Go for it.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion that we accept applications closing on the 29th with a special meeting being planned for Monday, December 4th. And we get the questions out and to each of the applicants once they've applied, give them the questions, and then they will have the interviews could last up to half an hour each.
Can we get a meeting time for December 4th and do 5 o'clock?
6 o'clock?
6?
6?
Please.
And it would be in such a way we could still ask whatever questions we want, right? We're not just
Limited.
stuck with the 5 questions.
Yeah, we will just have those questions if you consistently
Okay.
ask all 5 of those and then kind of open it up from there.
Okay,
And is it also out of line to ask for a resume along with the application?
shouldn't be.
Many of the other cities do request a
Okay.
resume.
Can we add that to the application?
Add that to the motion and a resume.
Oh, sorry.
Got it. And to confirm, you do want this televised
Yes.
special meeting?
Yep.
Anything else, Rich, before I second that?
No, I'm
Just
about
wondering.
done, I think.
Okay, cool. I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, now we're going on to 13B. This is city council assignments, appointments of city council members as representatives to other agencies. This is specifically dealing with the committees that Josh Wilson has vacated. So we can have a discussion item on that. First, let's have a staff report. Real quick one.
The city clerk will do the staff report.
Josh Wilson resigned on November 13th from his position on the city council. Due to his resignation, several positions as a city representative to other agencies are now vacant. They include the delegate to the Orange County Library Advisory Board. That committee is actually dark for the rest of the year. Delegate to Westcom, Councilmember Murphy is the alternate. Budget Standing Committee, he also serves with Councilmember Murphy. Upgrading and relocating the Civic Center complex, and he serves with Councilmember Kusamoto on that committee. And then the Targeted Zoning Committee, where he's also serving with Councilmember Kusamoto. At this time, it'd be appropriate for council to consider appointing other members to fill the vacancies, and council may also opt to leave the positions vacant until the council vacancy is filled.
I will open this up for public comments just to stay consistent. And see none, I'll bring it back here. I'll start real quick. I brought this not to appoint mainly the county boards because most of them are dark for the year now, but mainly some of our internal boards, if there's anything mission critical that we don't want to wait a couple of months on. I think with the Library Advisory Board and Westcom, they've already met for the rest of the year, so that's something we could do in December and reappoint on that. I mainly want to talk about Budget Standing Committee, the Civic Center upgrading and relocating, and the zoning code update, and what we feel needs to be appointed now, or what we can wait until December when we do our true reorg.
Go ahead.
So, Brett, I have a question on the last two, the targeted zoning, maybe Stephen, but when are we going to meet on that? So maybe we can wait?
It's coming up fairly quickly. I mean, the positions have been between the commissions making the recommendation and the council. We've got that in place, so it's very soon.
The targeted zoning could probably go off for a couple of weeks because your committee will not be meeting until after the stakeholder interviews are complete.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of time.
That one you can delay until you have a full 5 on the council.
And then the Civic Center complex, I know we're trying to get together back with the consultant, right?
Yeah, the committee was urged closure kind of in January, beginning of January. You wanted it by the end of the year. We'll soon have the hotel feasibility study, and then the other study will be present. So I would say that's about 2 weeks off before you should meet on that.
Yeah.
But, okay, so do we need a second council member for that? And the reason I ask is, you know, in view of everyone's time, but I think a lot of it is really just take the report in and present it back to this body anyways. We're not going to really, as a subcommittee, I don't think we're going to take much action other than just, it'll be a pass-through.
Yeah, our goal is to vet it at the staff level, bring it back to the subcommittee, and then to the full council.
But yeah, it's going to really be a pass-through the subcommittee anyways, right? Maybe some questions will be asked that'll help refine the presentation to this body, but, so maybe we don't need anybody for that?
There is the potential recommendation of the two alternatives, whether to look at this site and the cost and feasibility of staying here, or the recommended alternative. Those are the
okay,
two.
so you might want a second. Okay,
use
that's
a
fine.
second.
All right. Okay, so it'll be up to the three who'd want to get appointed to that.
Okay.
And that meeting took about roughly a couple hours, I think.
Yeah.
So probably another 2 hours of time to listen to the consultant and then make a recommendation, right, to the council. So.
Okay, so there's, so we do want to appoint somebody now for the Civic Center?
I think, yeah.
Okay. And then what about the Budget Standing Committee?
We won't meet before really
Yeah, we're probably
February.
good waiting until December if you have another fifth council member on board by then, appointed then.
Okay, do we want to wait until then? Okay, so we just need to figure out the Civic Center.
So Warren, with the Civic Center, were you kind of heading towards, I mean, the other option is just to have that recommendation come directly as a staff item into a council meeting, unless there was heavy lifting going to be done, which doesn't sound like there is.
I don't think, but I guess Brett might have a different viewpoint. I mean, to me, I thought it would be more of a pass-through, but.
I mean, yeah, that's a possibility too. We've got the two studies. We'll be able to give comments at the staff level, and we could bring it back to the full council. That's an option too.
Because that may, otherwise we'd have a meeting sometime during the day, a couple hours, right, during the week, and that may be difficult to get somebody's.
Yeah, it just wouldn't have that recommendation of the subcommittee like we usually do. And that's how this city council has used those subcommittees and been very valuable.
But again, the original effort, I think, was pretty good in terms of we just wanted a little more money to have a little more refined information, and it's still going to come to this body, and you're going to ask about the different options anyway. So maybe we just bypass the subcommittee.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
So no.
All right, then there's no action on any of these. Right. Okay, on to 13C. Approval of employment agreement for interim administrative services director. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is before you, based on the need to replace the previous administrative services director, Jason Alamitos, who left the city in late August. We have Maria Luisa Valdez is working as the interim administrative services director. She came from our firm, Lansall and Lunghart, our audit firm, and she has 10 years of audit experience, and she has unique experience to fill the void left behind with Jason. We have the need based on Senate Bill 1436. It mandates that agencies report out compensation or benefits of their executives, and we need to have an agreement in place. That's why it's before you tonight. The leave accrual benefits are in line with Los Alamitos Resolution 2017-07, and wages will be paid at Step D of Tier 2 of Administrative Services Director's salary, which is $64,008 and $133,286 annually. And at this time, we are recommending that the City Council authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with Maria Luisa Valdez for the interim administrative services director.
Okay. I will open this up for public comment. And seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for discussion.
You know, I had a couple points of discussion with the city manager, just a little bit of clarity, and I think in case anybody in the community is kind of interested, you know, if you look through the staff report, you know, it says approval of employment agreement for interim admin services. And so usually in the past when we've had temporary people, we brought them in under contract, meaning they weren't termed as employees. If you go to the attachment that is associated with this, on attachment 1, it says employment agreement. So it, you know, we're bringing this person in. So my question to Brett, and I was going to ask it in public just so everybody would kind of, if anybody was curious, is, you know, why are we calling it the interim administrative services if we're actually offering them a employment job? And, you know, and I think Brett, I'll let you kind of respond to the way that you told me, and it made sense with a lot of the restructuring going on with
Yeah, with the evaluation really within the whole organization right now, with the departure of Jason, as I mentioned, the administrative services director, with the recent departure of the recreation community services director, a city council vacancy. There's just enough transitional change right now that I want to continue to evaluate this position in terms of administrative services versus finance director, and incorporate it eventually into the whole study that will come back to the city council, the public works and recreation and community services department study that we'll present back to you within the next couple of months.
The second question I had had to do with section 3.3 of the employment contract, which was the salary. And about 5 years ago, the city council, in trying to get some sort of a plan of attack on our pension liabilities, we at that point paid everybody's that was an employee. We paid the employee's share of 8% of their salary. We would actually pay that, so they would get their salary, and then they would get their pension benefits. And by law, they might have had to pay, but we've always paid it. So what we did is we created a secondary salary schedule for historical purposes. I'm explaining this. And so if you ever look on our website and you say, well, hey, why does the city have 2 salary schedules for non-represented professionals, like would be at the level of the executive staff that's here tonight? And the reason why is because we actually restructured the salaries to take out that contribution. And that meant we lowered the salary levels of all those jobs by 9% and said, you know, at this point, if you want the job in Los Alamitos going forward, you know, you will be hired under this different structure, and you need to pay for your benefit because it's your retirement. And so my question behind the scenes to the city manager was, what schedule are we going on? When we've had recruitment times, tough times for some of the executive staff, we had to kind of question that reduction of salaries because the salaries were benchmarked against other cities. So those salaries made sense. So why would we ask these people to take jobs that they could get the same job at Cypress for 9% less here? So it became a little bit hard recruitment-wise. So I would just think, you know, staff and everybody involved in this employment contract, that it seems like we went towards trying to maintain our long journey on pension reform and trying to make sure we're saving the city longer term. And so I don't know, city manager, if you want to add to that, but that was the verification. I just was trying to make sure which schedule.
Yeah, it said 9%. It's actually 9% on the safety side and 8% on the miscellaneous. I told you 9, but yeah, that's accurate. And we have a tier 1 with the existing executive team that's in place, and future, as it's laid out in the code right now, future executive members are placed at tier 2.
Okay. Mayor, those are the only questions I had, and I just wanted to share that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Make a motion to accept the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 13D, authorize the city manager to work with the County of Orange on shared services. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is coming out of the one of the goals of the City Council is to look at the possibility of providing shared services at Orange County residents, and we've looked at working with the Orange County Public Works Director the County of Orange is putting together a automated system of permits and plan checks, and they're expecting to implement that after the first of the calendar year next year. So I've spoken with the Public Works Director in the county. We've talked about the possibility of learning how their system works once it's in place, and what it will take for us. What we're looking for at the staff level is just direction from the council that you're still interested in continuing to pursue that possibility. We would wait until their system is in place, but we would learn how it works, and if possible, as long as we're made whole financially and we can be reimbursed for the services that we provide, because we're in a, we're always in a mode of looking at what we can do as efficiently as possible. But if we can bring that back to the council and we're made whole for our services and we know how that system works, then we would bring something back. All we're looking for tonight is just a letter of interest that's attached to your staff report, and the council blessing that, and we would send that to the county public works director tomorrow if approved tonight.
Okay.
We would then come back at a later time to the council.
Okay.
I just want to mention also, included in that is shared services that the county could provide for the city as well. So as we're looking at all different options, there are services that they can provide for us. We're just always looking to do it as efficiently, cost efficiently and effectively as possible.
Okay. I will open it up for public comments. And seeing none, I'll bring it back here for discussion. Warren.
Thank you. So Brett, can you help explain, so beginning calendar year 2018, the county will have some type of online system for a resident in Rossmore that they want to put a pool in that they can apply for the permit? Is that kind of how I understand
it? At one time, we talked to them, and Stephen and I have met with the county public works director and the CEO, Frank Kim, and we talked about, could we eventually provide plan checks and building permits at the counter here as long as we're staffed up for it. I mean, we were like,
no, I understand that, but
and so now where the county is going is they're automating that service. So the objective of what Shane Silsby is talking about is they would be able to provide a service to Orange County residents where at their desktop they can do their automated plan checks and permits and receive them. And we would be the conduit. If we did this, we would have a computer set up and we would have to train people how to use it. So we wouldn't actually be issuing any longer the permits or plan checks at the counter. We would be showing residents how to use the system.
But say a contractor that does business in Rossmore can actually do that and not have to go to Santa Ana to go get the permit, right?
Yeah,
so it's almost like we wouldn't provide anything other than just a computer and maybe a printer then.
Yeah, we'd be trained on how to use it. I mean, we would be providing a service to those residents that need to know how to do it.
Understand, but again, I think when this first came up, when I met with, I had a perchance meeting with Shane Silsby, and was asking, what can we do for the residents of Rossmore to provide service for them? I wasn't imagining this. I was really thinking, actually get in there, do the plan check, and provide, save them a trip to the county. But if it's online, then there is where I'm going, I don't think there's any action for you in this if that's where it's going with the county. I mean, somebody with a computer and a printer can, and probably a Visa card, MasterCard.
Since their system is not in place, I think it still would be worth sending a letter of interest, because we do talk about the possibility of them providing services to us. So it's a project where we could work together.
But can you give an example of the services they would provide to us?
The services that they've laid out, that they could provide traffic operations, street maintenance, sign fabrication, and inspection services are examples that the county could provide and supplement what we're doing if we can do it at a lower cost.
I mean, so like the refreshed street signs that were faded now are new. So you're saying that we could have actually gone to the county and asked for a bid for that? Is that
we have that service.
But we don't need an agreement for that. We can just go do that, right?
But the agreement would allow us, because this is a project that's still in work with the county, it would allow us to potentially provide a service for the county residents that.
No, but I'm talking the other way. So relative to Los Alamitos, and we need stop signs. And you can go to whatever Acme stop sign company, or you can go to the county and see who bids the cheapest. You wouldn't need the agreement to do that, right? You can just pick up the phone and say, "Can you bid on this job?" To
we would enter into an agreement with the county if they're going to provide services for us.
But I'm talking a commodity, not a service. A commodity like a stop sign.
It depends on what it is.
I understand. So I guess I'm not seeing the value if they're doing things online. It seems like it's just going to be resources you're going to have to devote to go learn something where's the cost recovery for you? I don't see it, right?
What I said was, this is just a letter of interest. If we entered into an agreement, we would have to be assured that we're provided a reimbursement of our costs, whatever service we're providing.
But that means, okay, then I think what I hear there is a surcharge on the contractor doing business in Rossmore, that now they have to charge their customer maybe an extra 3% for cost recovery. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me what I've heard so far. So I'm just asking the questions, right? Because if you were actually doing the work and getting that, the work, the labor, and then, made whole and then some, I'd be in favor of that. But if you're just actually a pass-through, again, it just doesn't seem like why would we want to do that?
Yeah, that's what this is. It's a kiosk that basically.
Yeah.
Well, and from what I understand, it's a kiosk. They still have to come into the city or go to Santa Ana. It's not something they can do the entire process in their computer at home. So what we're doing is we're providing the convenience for Rossmore residents or contractors to come here instead of going to downtown Santa Ana. We would recover the revenue for those services instead of the county. Those were the conversations I was having.
That's out. That's what the letter of interest.
Right.
Okay. No, I understand it better. I was kind of using the example that somebody with a computer and a printer sitting in their maybe truck can apply online and then have an electronic permit. What do they need us for?
And that may be possible, but like I said, that this is they're still working out the entire system.
Okay. All right. I get it. All right. I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. So can we take this down on one level? So Steve, can I just ask you a couple questions? So I'm working with Edison, and I'm going to do an underground utility project in Rossmore. I've got to go pull an encroachment permit. I think what we're saying is we would actually be able to process that here versus going to the County of Orange, because that is a physical action. You have to go down. You have to submit a bunch of documentations. Once you get the permit, you physically have to get it and post it. I guess I'm confused by the response as Warren is. Can we get a little bit better example? Because being a little bit in this business, I could see a tremendous value of having a local jurisdiction where I wouldn't have to go to Santa Ana if I was a vendor providing services, let alone a citizen of that area, which might be the jobs would cost less over the long haul.
The example that you provide for encroachment permits hasn't been discussed with the county yet, but it is definitely something worth exploring to allow their vendors to come to City Hall to receive the services and to avoid downtown Santa Ana. I mean, they would be able to come here. It'd be a one-stop shop where, as you know, many of the Rossmore encroachment permits also cross into Los Alamitos. Yeah. If they're digging, they should be able to go to a one-stop shop instead of going to downtown Santa Ana and then coming here for the separate permits. So encroachment permits are a really good example.
Yeah, because think about it. If you're, and I'm not picking on Edison, but definitely dealt with them. But if they could just have a printer and a view, they would never leave Rosemead, and they would just get everything there. You can't do that. You have to be able to go to local jurisdiction. Make sure that you're out with the community, go walk the area, all of those types of inspections required. I could see that being a tremendous service that we would step into, and I, like Warren, thought that's kind of what we were doing. And not to put you in the spot, but just by basing our feedback, can we take it to the next level? I'd hate to kill something like this off because we just didn't get through it on this discussion at the right level. But I'm very interested in, we're a super small city, shared services, where we can actually start spreading our costs over a little bit bigger base without being aggressive and invasive to Rossmore, but really trying to help us be more cost efficient makes a ton of sense. I don't think we're using the right examples right now.
Well, let me give you an example that I'm excited about. I'm always interested in alternatives to striping our streets. Mm-hmm. Love to have a fresh striping done once a year in every neighborhood. Yeah. If the county already does that, it'd be interesting to get a pricing for them to do it over 10 years for our city. Yeah. They're not going to outlay the capital to do it for 1 year, but they certainly may invest in the capital to provide that service to our region for a 5-year. Stop signs, installation and creation and fabrication of the signs. Very interested in getting someone on board for 10 years for that. Great for budgeting, great for forecasting. Mm-hmm. Very interested in that. It's the LA County model. Yeah. LA County has always had that model for the small cities of Artesia, Lakewood, La Mirada. All of those cities use the county even as their city traffic engineer.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to get that on the table to start negotiating to see what you can provide. A dream of mine would be fleet management. You know, those kind of things. And this letter is so vague, it allows for Brett to go and explore those kind of topics.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of conspiracy person in me that says, what are you talking about, the county providing us service? So I would say I don't see super amount of feasibility because I'm not sure I see the county providing a lot of efficient services other than for some of the very specific purposes that they have at the social services level and maybe the medical for a different group of folks within the county, but I can't see them like doing something for us. But I'm just saying I am in support of this under the context that we're talking about it right now. If we think that there's an opening for further discussion, and hopefully the rest of the colleagues will go with us on that, maybe we could explore it that way. Thank you.
And one of the reasons when I got involved with this, it wasn't so much the county providing us services, but knowing that we have an infrastructure set up for plan check, for permits, and many Rossmore residents come over here anyway and start here, and then we have to send them off to downtown Santa Ana. So we've already got that set up. It wouldn't take a whole lot of ramping up to provide those residents with that convenient service for them. I know the Eddie Keskes of the world would love it. So he hires actually somebody to go down to Santa Ana to pull all those permits. So, you know, those type of businesses and contractors would love that. So this was just in talking to Michelle Steele's office. They were interested in it. You know, and almost like the Veterans Center over there, it's just a one-stop shop for this area here, and we would benefit from it financially, and then also do a reciprocal agreement if that makes sense with other services that the county can provide.
So the county supervisor, Michelle Steele, is somewhat directionally supportive of this?
She has been. Okay. She just needed some paper to formally ask permission, but she has always been on board with that, seeing just the benefit of people coming across the street versus downtown. Okay. So. All right, so do I have a motion on this? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm in agreement.
Okay.
But I have one more. Question. So, Brett, in terms of the folks in Rossmore, do you have a sense of, do they look at this as something good or something, you know, with a hidden agenda?
I would think they would look at it positively because if it's as the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem have laid out, if it's possible for them to come and get something here where the contractor doesn't have to go to downtown Santa Ana. That's the focus.
I understand, but I think one of the things if you can somehow gauge feedback from your contact with Jim Ruth over there,
I've talked to Jim about it,
because the last thing, we don't need the backlash to saying we're trying to take over services. That's the last thing we want to be. You know, we don't want to do it, and we're going to do it as an ability to provide a service. But if it gets received negatively, I don't want to support that because none of us need that kind of grief.
I've talked to Jim Ruth about it, and I've talked to Tony DeMarco about it, and
okay.
I think it would be received positively.
Okay, so as long as we're getting that feedback as well, because full transparency, let them know we're trying to help, and if that help is not welcome, I think we just need to understand that and then make an appropriate decision with that. So,
but I think we got to be honest. We're trying to help them, but I think we're also really trying to help ourselves, considering the financial problems we have right now.
You'll be spreading the base, but again, without that, we can still survive. I mean, that's it's not going to. We're not going to get a windfall.
Yeah. No. Okay. So I'll make a motion to send the letter.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and with that, we'll bring it back to council comments. Any last round?
How about that SC game?
Oh.
No. Okay.
It's a W. That's like.
Okay, and we'll be reconvening back in closed session.
That is correct. If I may, we'll re-adjourn into closed session to discuss items 3, B, and C from the closed session agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, and this meeting is adjourned.
So the kids need signature.